Okay, so we are recording now. Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining Crush to Cellar webinar today. We are very excited to introduce two Eric Dahlberg and Eric Hervé. Gordon Burns is here as well, so thank you for participating, everybody. The topic today is about reverse osmosis, test track, differential filtration. We sadly experienced drastic fire this year in California, in South California, North California, and Oregon as well. And on September 8th, I think Oregon were in the smoke in the Willamette Valley, and many of us experienced, this heavy smoke for more than 10 days in the vineyards. So today we are going to talk about mitigation and see what options are out there to test the wine, to see how can we fix these smoke impacted wines. So first, Eric Dahlberg, thank you very much. You are with Wine Secrets. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm the founder of Wine Secrets. We've been working on a variety of different wine filtration technologies since 2002. I'm speaking to you from our wine assessment lab just outside of Santa Rosa, California.
Okay, so I have a series of 10 questions for you. So we always proceed that way with Crush to Cellar webinar. So 10 questions, 10 answers, try to be precise, direct, and direct to the point. So can you tell us what is the test track exactly?
I certainly can. The test track is a bench scale version of our tangential filtration service machines. So we can do pretty much any method that we're able to do with the bigger equipment: taint removal, DL, various types of extractions, concentrations, and removals. You send us a challenge and you can taste the results. This particular test track is the third version, dating about 2016. We've got another one that we're working on that'll have improved automation.
Okay, so when did you build the first test track and how did you come up with the idea?
So the concept dates back to about 2009 or so. We started doing work with small-scale, single-function equipment, initially with alcohol adjustment, and then we realized we could do it with taint removal and ultrafiltration and other things like that. I came up with the idea of putting all of the functionality into a single unit on its own standalone platform in about 2014. And as I said earlier, this is our third version. It's pretty complete, and we've had this one in service since 2017.
So can you talk about the technology? How does it work?
Yes, happy to. So you place a sample of wine in this reservoir. Most of the technologies that we offer are recirculations. We have a few that are one pass through, but most of the taint removal will require at least a full volume of the wine. So from there, you can't see it in this screen, but we have a multi-pressure pump capable of doing everything from our highest pressure, which would be for VA removal, right on down to ultrafiltration. From there, the wine's pumped across a membrane. We can put different membranes into test track just like we can our larger service machines to create the result that we're looking for. We then, the retentate, which is where your color, flavor, and things you want to protect are, then goes back to the reservoir by way of an onboard chiller because pumps add a little bit of energy, so we need to take that out. The permeate, which is what we want to subject to treatment, will then go through one of several different treatment modules, depending again on the result. Right now, the system has a small 0.5 micron carbon block on it, typically that's what we're going to treat, permeate with if we need to reduce the level of smoke taint. This system also has an onboard osmotic transport membrane to do dealk. We have a module that allows us to do small-scale VA removal, though in my experience, none of the Oregon winemakers ever get VA. So the next version is going to be able to figure out how many liters of treatment we've done and turn itself on and off and some other cool functions.
Okay, so if we want to do a bench trial, we talked about getting the test track to a Newburgh location at Crush to Cellar sometime in March. So if anyone would like to do a test track trial, how much wine do we need to send to your location?
This would be a good time to tell your audience that we actually have two different methods for smoke taint removal. We first took on smoke taint in 2004 from forest fires in British Columbia in 2003. We used a method that had been developed in Australia and it worked quite well. That method is reverse osmosis followed by solid phase absorption. In our particular case, we found that a 0.5 micron carbon block works better than anything else. We've tried resins, we've tried regular carbon. The 0.5 micron block seems to work best. We stuck with that method in 2009 when we dealt with all the smoke tainted wines from the 2008 fires. But between that period and the 2017 fires we had here in Napa, the Australia Wine Research Institute started learning about the existence and presence of these glycosylated molecules, and we knew that we did some trials early on, and we found out that we could not get the glycosylated molecules to pass through an RO membrane. They're too big. We came up with a method that we call differential filtration, which adds a pre-step of filtration, isolates the larger molecules in their own little phase, and treats the smaller molecules by RO, and thus excludes the larger glycosylated fraction. So if you believe that you get a problem with the larger glycosylated form, you would ask us to do the what we call a differential filtration panel, which allows you to compare differential filtration results with those from what we call traditional reverse osmosis, which is what's been in use for a long, long time. For that, we would need 3 cases. If you've gotten some good, some results from ETS, and it looks like the level of taint is relatively low, then you might want to go with traditional RO only. We only need a case to do a bench scale trial with traditional RO. You'll get 6 bottles back with the traditional RO trial. With the panel, you'll get 6 bottles of wine that's been treated with the differential method, 6 that have been treated by the traditional RO method, and we'll send you a small sample of what we call the molecular trap, which is which really shows you where all the smoke and things that you don't want went.
Okay, so RO and differential filtration, with 1 case, you should be able to do the bench trial.
Pardon me?
With 1 case, you should be able to do the bench trial.
Exactly.
Okay.
For the traditional method, which is reverse osmosis only.
Okay. And so for the differential filtration, you need an additional case?
2 additional cases.
2 additional. So three total for the differential filtration. Got it.
Yes.
And from there, we get the result of the sample, the different stage of filtration?
Yes.
Okay. So that is good. So can we expect the wine to be treated after one pass? You know, how does that work? Do we need to go through the reverse osmosis differential filtration as many times, as many passes than the level of markers are, or how does that work?
So one of the reasons why we developed Test Track is because you don't really know how much treatment you need until you've done it. The more smoke smoke taint you start with, the more treatment you need to get the result you're looking for. Based on early inspection of some samples, both in Napa and Oregon, we're offering treatment levels of 100, 200, and 300% for each method. So that's 1 volume, 2 volume, and 3 volumes. With past smoke events, we've had to do more. The trick is to optimize the most removal for the least treatment. And that's one reason why we applied samples at different ranges, so that the winemaker can assess how much treatment he thinks is best for his wine.
Okay, we have one question who come very often. You know, we have the glycosylated bound and the volatile bound. And is it better to break the bound prior to do the test track with the enzyme, beta glycosylated enzymes?
So this tool wasn't really all that available back in '09 when we did a lot of wine treatment, but we have some experience with other taints that suggest that this method could be pretty effective. Darren Michaels from Scott Labs is the duty expert on this. I think that as we start to do some treatment and get some results back, we'll know a lot more. But certainly, if it was my wine and I was in that kind of high single, low double digit range, I would hit it with some enzyme and then use RO.
Okay. So another question is, how early before the test track should we start working with the enzymes? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month?
Allowing the wines to resolve themselves, you certainly don't, because sensory is going to be important, even though we have excellent analysis available through ETS. You really want to wait till probably 2 months after ML is done. I would suggest working with the enzyme towards the end of that call it a rest period.
Okay.
Again, Scott Labs has a lot more expertise in the use of this enzyme than I do.
Well, Scott Lab have a protocol, you know, with enzyme, BG, and I can put you in contact with them if you need more information. So feel free to shoot me an email at sebastien@crushcellar.com, and I will send you a Scott Lab contact information. Darren Michael, who is, you know, way more knowledgeable than I am on that matter. So I will put you in touch with him. So you are doing reverse osmosis and differential filtration for a long time now. Do you have like a big success and some disappointment? Can you share some of your work, and have you been, some winemakers maybe had some disappointment with the method, and can you share some big success and disappointment? This is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Well, the first work that we did on wines up in British Columbia were very, very successful. You know, we never get to find out till after, but you know, we were able to take wines that were presumed to be unsaleable and you know, get them to where they were quite palatable. 2009, we did over 1 million gallons for various producers. You know, as our name suggests, Wine Secrets, we kind of can't kiss and tell. But most of those wines were subsequently finished, written about, sold, drank, all the normal stuff that will happen to a wine. We did get some anecdotal information from a few of the smaller producers that they thought that they'd come back, or we didn't get enough of it. I think that what may have happened back then is people stopped the treatment a little bit too early. Again, we didn't quite have the degree of analysis that's available now. And as has been well documented, tasting smoke taint wines can be tricky. The taint will sort of show up everywhere, and plus you'll very quickly develop palate fatigue. That's why you've got to gauge your endpoint with both sensory and analytical results.
Okay, so another question is, everybody asks me the question, how much does it cost, to use, your service per gallon? People, do you have a like a bracket of price then the service cost per gallon?
It's mostly going to depend on the lot size and the amount of smoke taint. If you have enough gallons that you're going to keep machines busy for multiple days with a relatively light amount of smoke taint, it's going to be somewhere between 50 cents and $1 a gallon. If you have small lots that are heavily contaminated, it could be much, much more.
Okay, so that helped. Thank you. How much does it cost to do the test track?
If you want to try out just traditional RO, it's $475. If you want the full differential filtration panel, you've gotten your results back and it looks like the bound smoke taint molecules are the concern for you. The differential panel is $1,395 plus shipping both ways.
Okay. So we get some questions for the attendees, and one question is, what is the turnaround time for bench strike currently?
It's going to have more to do with our backlog than anything else. We have several test tracks, but if everybody wants to use them at once, we're going to start to backlog to some degree. But normally, we can turn a traditional trial in a couple of days, and the differential one's going to take us 3 days to operate.
Okay. So, so the next question is, people, are very, coming to me and asking me questions. When are you coming to Oregon? When can we start scheduling your service? We have Wine Secret, we have Cascade Wine Filtration as well. So if somebody want to use your service, will you be able to come in Oregon to offer a service for the winemakers?
The answer to that is happily. We've been working in Oregon since I started the business back in 2003. So we're going to be a better fit for larger volumes, though. As Sebastien mentioned, we've been kind of partnering with Cascade up there. We've equipped them to do both our version of traditional smoke taint removal by RO, and also they got the right gear to do differential as well. If you got less than 10,000 gallons, Cascade's going to be a better, more cost-effective fit for you. If you have more, we have bigger, faster equipment, and it's going to be cost-effective to bring us up. Ideally, we'd like to have, let's call it back-to-back projects going on in Oregon, so that the cost of moving the equipment up and back can be spread.
Okay. So will you be able to communicate with us, when you schedule to come to work with a bigger player, and maybe we can add some 10,000 gallon and more to your agenda?
You know what, Sebastien? I'm happy if you want to serve as the ringmaster up there.
Okay.
Once we're there, we're there. No one's called us in yet, but I think we're still very much in the assessment phase. I think that my friends at ETS could confirm that as well. People are still examining the wines. We're going to start doing some cellar scale trials as well with call it small production scale ROs starting next month. So again, I don't know the minds of the winemakers yet, but we're starting to get towards spring, and typically you're going to want to address the smoke taint before you go down the barrel if you're going to go into new wood, because you know, a lot of the you know, the wood flavor components are about the same size as the smoke, and the treatment's going to take them out too.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We have other question. How does your treatment compare to VA filtration smoke taint mitigation process?
Good question. My understanding is that they use resin, whereas we've stuck with the 0.5 micron carbon block. You know, we've had customers run the processes side by side, and you know, we were the ones still standing when the trial was over. That said, you know, VA Filtration is a reputable company, and I'm sure that you know, what they got, you know, could be effective.
Okay. What are the setup fees for bringing Wine Secret to Oregon?
I want to say it's around $2,000 or so. It can be less. You know, it's all about time, and it's simply the time to get a guy in a truck up there, and you know, it doesn't take long to set the equipment up once we're there. It's all about the distance.
Okay, so great. Thank you very much, Eric, for explaining all the test track, you know, equipment and instrument. You know, if anybody have more questions, please feel free to shoot an email to Eric Dalberg directly. He's always busy on the road, so you can also shoot me emails at sebastian@crushtosailor.com. I will be happy to pass the question and to Eric and get answer for you. So that brings us to the next question then somebody have is, can we get the analysis panel? So this is why I invited Eric Hervé to join from ETS Lab to join us, because you have some experience with smoke, more than anybody, I think. Gordon Burns is here as well. I know your lab was surrounded with fire this year, and you have been in extreme stress and difficulty to be able to manage the harvest 2020 with the fridge and freezer all around you to try to keep the sample. So thank you, Eric, for coming. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, this is Eric with Eric Hervé with ETS Labs. Do you see me? I don't see me on my screen.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Yes, so yes, so on what we've been developing assays for smoke markers since 2008. Basically, it started with the main two markers, guaiacol for methyl guaiacol. Now we have more offerings with an extended panel for volatile markers and a glycosylated markers panel. Hold on one sec. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so basically there's the guaiacols to start with, two compounds. There's three more compounds that are extremely interesting, the cresols, and they are good confirmation of what we can tell from looking at just guaiacol and 4-methyl guaiacol. Phenol can be useful too, and two other markers, the serangol 4-methyl serangol, that have been proposed by the AWRI as markers of smoke taint. They don't seem to be that relevant, at least here in the studies that we've done so far, for some reason. But it is very possible that the main glycosylated forms of these two compounds would be. So the jury is still out for that. But at this point, again, what we have is the two main markers or an extended panel with more volatile compounds, and then the glycosylated panel. Glycosylated markers, that will be that for each of the compounds in the extended panel will have the main glycosylated form that has been identified so far. Okay, so that's rutinoside and gentiobiosides, not regular sugars, some more exotic names. But basically, that's the main compounds, and we have verified that they seem to be very relevant here in California, at least during a couple of studies. Okay, but we will learn a lot more this year about that. By the way, we didn't learn much this year from the scientific standpoint because we were in a fire disaster situation. We're just trying to get results out as fast as possible. We learned a few things. So first, that during the crisis, we could just do the 2 basic markers, offer that. Now, and it's just a couple of weeks that we do again the extended volatile compounds and the glycosylated markers. It's this week. It's coming this week. Some other things that we knew, I mean, there's that we learned. Growers associations may start to think about having facilities to do microferments. A lot of people just are growers and don't have a winemaking facility and were lost when they were asked to do microferments. Also, just facilities to keep your grape samples frozen, at least as backup samples. We were, I mean, at some point we had to evacuate the lab. Here we're just a few hundred yards away from the fire, and we had thousands of grape samples in freezers and in fridges. And we said, okay, there's no way that we can live with leaving these samples here. And it would have taken days to take them out of the fridges one by one in an orderly fashion. And we decided to move the whole fridges. So middle of the night, we were putting fridges on forklifts and on trucks to move them to a secure location. But it was a close call. Yes, thinking about facilities for microferments, and also to keep in backup samples, at least for.
Okay, so Eric, I read then, do you recommend to run analysis for grapes in year then there are no fire, to have a base reference for each vineyard? I read that ETS Lab is actually building a database representing the main grapes. So 2 questions. Does the Northwest will be in a database as well? And if we do, how can we help to build this database to have this reference?
Right. So at this point, what we're working with wines first, and it will be applicable to microferments. Okay. Yes. Even with grapes not exposed to smoke, you can expect at least some trace levels of most of these compounds, and we are not sure at this point how much. So we have a database that is a work in progress. We expected to make it much bigger this year, but guess what happened? You need wines not from grapes, not exposed to smoke, and they're a little bit hard to find. So, but yes, if you have wines that we could use, so 100% single variety, if possible, no contact with oak, because we'd like to look also at volatile markers. Yes, get in contact with us, and we're interested. But that will be, so at this point, for just the main markers, guaiacol and 4-methyl guaiacol, what is really nice about them is that you don't need a database. They are virtually non-existent in all grape varieties except Syrah. In Syrah, there is guaiacol, but there is no 4-methyl guaiacol. So but typically there's about 4 times less 4-methyl guaiacol in grapes exposed to smoke and in wine. So with Syrah, we can tell there's been exposure only in cases of relatively extreme, intense exposure to smoke. So what we're telling people is, okay, look at look at other grape varieties that are next to it and use that as proxies. We are hoping that we will have more information with glycosylated markers. Still, in case of massive fire events, there will be a bottleneck, which is the preparation of the samples. If it's grapes, we have to make slurries, we have to process them, and it's time-consuming. The other option is microferments, which is great for us because we don't have much sample preparation to do, but somebody has to prepare the microferments.
Okay, so what analysis would you recommend before and after a test track?
So when you're dealing with cleaning up wines, now clearly we would recommend an extended volatile panels marker and the glycosylated markers. And as I said, for each of the volatile compounds, there will be the main glycosylated form. Okay, and that will be the tools to use if you, even before treatment, if you try some enzyme treatments to try to break the bond. That's something that you can monitor. Then during your treatment, was your treatment effective? Maybe you can do a test run and see how much to treat your wine. As Eric said, it's very difficult to rely only on sensory but you have to rely on sensory, but it's difficult. It's tricky. You have sensory fatigue. What we've seen a lot, it's anecdotal experience, but what we've seen a lot is apparently people trying to stop the treatment maybe too early. And there's good reasons. I mean, when you compare a wine before and during treatment or after, it can be day and night. Okay, and then your fear is, am I stripping the wine too much? We suspect that in many cases, the treatments have been stopped too early. And yes, there was a day and night difference between non-treated, treated, but then guess what? It's like, the smoke came back later. I'm not sure it really came back later. I'm sure it was actually there, but not as noticeable when what you compare it with. It's something before treatment. And as the wine gets cleaner also with time, the smoke shows up more. Eric, you were saying, I think, wait until malolactic is done, and at least a few weeks or a couple months, right? Young wines can be misleading. Even young wine fermentation esters can mask smoke when it's a moderate level, when it's a borderline level. And when the wine gets older, gets ready to bottle, actually it shows up more. Also, the other thing to take into account is just your education. I mean, the most you taste wine, the more you are exposed to smoke-exposed wines, the more sensitive you are to that. I mean, it's valid for anything. When you start assessing TCA in cork soaps, at first maybe you're going to detect 2 ppt of TCA, and as you get trained, you're going to get to 1 ppt and then 0.5. Same thing.
So you recommend to wait. Do you have data? Because we hear that the smoke flavor came later on after treatment. Do you have data to show then the smoke come back later on, even after bottling?
Not much data about that. I mean, every time that we monitor the wines during several months or a year, we saw the increases of guayacols free guayacols that we saw were so small that it was still within the uncertainty of the analytical method. So, but there was consistently increases, but it was again so small that I'm not completely. Something that we haven't seen is big jumps. And it's possible that maybe after treatment, you disrupt the equilibrium between free forms and bound forms, and then you could have a faster release of bound forms. But again, that's something that we didn't have the right tools to look at, and we will have these tools now.
Okay. So, Eric Dalbert, you say, I have a question. You say a relatively low taint. What is a low taint? What is relatively low taint in terms of analysis?
Well, again, as you start getting into single-digit guaiacol, and again, I'm talking free. In my experience, you'll have almost as much of an effect from the taint masking the other flavors in the wine and preventing them from expressing themselves as opposed to creating their own effect. So often, you know, one pass with the RO will reduce that effect considerably and really brighten up the wine. Typically, if you're high single digit, low double digit, like under 15 or so, then you're certainly going to want to treat with RO. I don't have a complete understanding of the relationship between free and bound because it's going to be quite variable depending on the fire, depending on the distance from the fire, and depending on the point in the vine's development when the smoke exposure occurs. We've treated wines with free guaiacol numbers as high as the 60s.
Wow. With good success?
Yes, they were made commercially viable. I don't know that they made it to anyone's reserve program, but yes, it's astonishing what you can do with this technology.
Okay, so I have another question for you, Eric. Hervé, what markers are identified in the extended panel?
So again, with the basic panel, just guaiacol and 4-methyl guaiacol. Extended panel, you have 3 cresols, ortho-meta-para. You have phenol, syringol, and 4-methyl syringol. Okay.
Okay.
And again, as a glycosylated marker, you will have the main glycosylated form for each of these compounds.
Okay.
So also something that I didn't restate is that one of the nice things about glycosylated compounds also is that they are not given by aging in oak, in contact with oak. So at this point, when we are dealing with wines exposed to oak, all I can tell by looking at the numbers is tell you, okay, what we're looking at is mostly oak, but there might be some smoke hidden under that, and I don't know how much. With glycosylated markers, we'll have answers to that.
Okay, another question is, will the enzyme work if you have finished ml and already added SO2?
Yes, that would be a question for Scott Labs, I think, for enzyme specialists. But yes,
So, Patty,
I'm not sure.
Patty, I will put you in touch with Scott Lab with Darren Michael, but I assume yes. The answer should be yes. So I will. You know, you need very high level of SO2 to not be able to have enzyme work. So I would say yes. What about treatment with white wines? Do you have any experience, Eric Dahlberg?
Yes, we've done a lot of them. Certainly, quite a few of the wines from that first exposure and from 2009 were white wines. We didn't see any white wines from the 2017 Napa fire because all those had come in, but we've treated them very successfully. Both, the wines that would go through ML, such as Chardonnays and the other varietals as well, Sauv Blancs and things like that. Easily done.
Okay, thank you.
Sebastien?
Oui.
Sebastien, if I may add something. Yes, since we're talking about whites versus red, something that we learned this year is about differences between grape varieties in sensitivity to smoke. We knew for quite a while that Petit Verdot is extremely sensitive to smoke compared to other Bordeaux varieties. It tends to pick up about 10 times more smoke compounds than anything else. This year, we saw a lot of comparisons between Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And the good news for Chardonnay was that it seems to be very resistant to smoke. You needed to get really relatively severe the impact on Pinot Noir to start to see an impact on Chardonnay. And that's something that we could see from the grape analysis to start with. And then in wine, since with Chardonnay, there's very little contact with skins, and if you know you're dealing with smoke-exposed grapes, you do everything you can to prevent skin contact. I mean, there's many places where the Pinot Noir are badly impacted, and the Chardonnay seems to be just fine. Okay, and that's really, that we'll need confirmation in future years, but that's a good point to keep some Chardonnay vines when you're thinking about replanting to Pinot Noir.
Well, that is important information, I think, in Oregon. What about, we talk about that. I'm looking at the list of questions, but you already answered a lot of the questions I had. So let's talk about cost. How much does it cost to do like a volatile marker, guaiacol, 4-methyl guaiacol? How does that cost to do a volatile extended? How does that cost to do a glycosylated bound analysis?
So for wines at this point, the basic panel with just the guaiacols is $160 per sample. Extended panel is $205, and glycosylated marker $280.
Okay, so we are going to.
We're asking for extended and glycosylated. We're asking for about 5-7 days turnaround time, but 2 days for the basic markers.
Okay, so that was the next question as well. So it's great. At Crush to Cellar in March, we should be able to offer the test track service, and we will offer a package to the winemaker, to the community, with analysis included to the test track service. So that will be coming in March. So just wanted to let everybody know. We did some analysis this year from the Pinot Noir 2020 from the Dundee Hill. I got some wine here and sent it to Sebastopol. Eric did the test track. Eric Hervé did the analysis on the volatile markers for the Cabernet Sauvignon and volatile marker, sorry, for the Pinot Noir and volatile extended for the Cabernet Sauvignon. Can you share the result of this analysis, Eric? I have them on my screen. If you want, I can share my screen. Can you see?
Yes, so basically that's we have clearly a smoke impacted wine here, just looking at with maybe a little bit some influence of oak too, but it looks like there is some smoke here because of the cresols. The removal is quite dramatic. I mean, that's really extremely efficient. So yes, maybe this one was treated too much at this point, but I don't know. The 500%, I don't know what it means, but yes, clearly there's the removal of volatile compounds is extremely efficient.
Okay, so Eric Dahlberg, can you tell us? You did treat this wine. What did you do to this Cabernet Sauvignon to get this data on your test track?
Again, we did 5 volume equivalents.
Okay. So in differential filtration?
We did differential filtration, but I'm trying to tell if that's initial. Yeah, I believe that was the differential filtration trial, because that's all we analyzed for. We did. Okay. This was something that we did both in the on the test track and cellar scale a couple of years ago, and yeah, it was quite effective, and the wines came out pretty good.
Okay, and that that is the Cabernet Sauvignon, and now we are talking about the Pinot Noir from Dundee Hill. That is just the simplified volatile marker. So what treatment did you do here? We see initial, so I assume that is the control. We see 300.
Yes,
differential.
We did 300% both by traditional RO and by differential filtration for that particular wine.
Okay, so we are waiting for the glycosylated bound. Sorry, my English with this word is terrible. So we are waiting for the result for the bound analysis. Eric, do you know when will we be able to get the result?
By the end of the week, which is soon now,
Okay.
which is tomorrow.
Okay, so I also received now the wine from you, Eric Dahlberg. So I split the wine in small bottle, and I will send this wine to a panel of winemaker in the Willamette Valley. So if anyone is interested to be part of a wine tasting, sadly with COVID-19 we cannot do it together. But what I will do is drop the bottle at different locations, and the people can test the wine and give me some feedback from the tasting. So I will send an email to everybody to inform them about the tasting, how I want to proceed for the tasting, how to capture the data from everybody, and at this point I will be able to share the result tasting and also the result analysis from ETS lab. Let me go back to my questionnaire. I think we answer everybody's question. Let me check for Eric Hervé. Do you find the Australian sensory threshold of 23 ppb for total guaiacol to be accurate? I see you have a big smile, so go ahead.
Yes, that's a great question, because that's I hear it so often. It's not that is wrong, it's irrelevant, I believe. So, because what the biggest mistake to do when you're dealing with that is to Google guaiacol threshold wine, and yes, you're going to find about 20 or so. That's not relevant, because that's another threshold for an individual compound, just one. Basically, it can be done in model wine or dearomatized wine, and it's just the pure compound that is added on 20 is the level where it starts to have an impact. When we're talking about smoke, guaiacol is just a small part of a complex mix, and it gets help of probably dozens of other molecules. So even if each of them is below sensory threshold, you add everything, you have at least an additive effect, and maybe even synergistic. So to our experience, not 20, but past 5 or 6 ppb of guaiacol. Just look at guaiacol and realize that it is a marker. It is an indicator of everything else. So, but just look at the guaiacol number. If there is no contribution from oak, typically past about 6 ppb or so, you have expect to have some smoke characters, noticeable by most people. When you are at lower levels, let's say 3 to 4, that's what Eric was talking about. You're in this danger zone where the smoke impact is not obvious, at least to most people, but to the most sensitive people, it is. They can get it. Depending on the people, it will be on the nose, it will be the aftertaste. Everybody is different, and even the same person will vary in its assessment from day to day. But the analysis tells you that you are in this danger zone when you are around 3 to 4 for guaiacol. If you are at, it's normal to have some guaiacol, at least in most red wines, have between 1 and 2. White wines closer to 1, sometimes less than 1, often less than 1 actually. But yes, when you exceed about 2 ppb for most wines for guaiacol, that starts to be suspect. 3 to 4 danger zone, past 6, but most people get the smoke character. Okay, so the 20, yes, okay, it's interesting from the scientific perspective to see when really one molecule can have an impact, but it's not really relevant in our
Okay, so not sure, I don't see additional questions. If you have additional questions, please send them my way. We can answer now. Otherwise, you can send me an email again at Sebastien@crushtocellar.com, and I will be happy to put you in contact with Eric Hervé, or you can get Eric Hervé directly at ETS, or Eric Dahlberg as well at Wine Secret. So thank you very much, Eric and Eric, for participating.
it was a pleasure.
I hope we answer a lot of questions. I'm very eager to have this test track in Newburgh in our building, Crush Cellar. I'm very, pleased that we're able to put that together. I felt very powerless during harvest, and still today, a lot of questions come up. We don't have always the right answer. However, the best that we can is to bring technology like the test track to the winemakers access to be able to help them to mitigate the smoke impacted wine. So I want to thank you everybody for playing the game of Crush the Cellar. You know, then we are sharing the building with ETS Lab here in Newburgh, and we are the one-stop shop for all your winery needs. Thank you very much, everybody, and talk to you soon. And I will send you email to let you know the testing results of the Dundee Hill Pinot Noir 2020. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sebastien.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastien. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.